Today, XRP soars after Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse announced that the SEC will drop its appeal. Some U.S. lawmakers are sounding the alarm over President Trump's crypto ties. And speaking at the Digital Asset Summit, Binance CEO Richard Teng addresses recent reports involving him and the Trump family. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Katie Tarasov. Crypto prices in the green this afternoon after the Federal Reserve decided to keep interest rates unchanged. The market largely expected the move, so as of noon, Bitcoin climbed nearly 4% toward the $85,000 level. Ether jumped 9%, and Ripple's native token XRP soared a whopping 14% after the company's CEO announced that the SEC is dropping its long-running lawsuit against the firm. Brad Garlinghouse took to X this morning to announce that the regulator will drop its appeal in the case against the crypto payments company, which he called a, quote, resounding victory for Ripple and the crypto industry. Back in 2020, the SEC filed charges against Ripple and two of its executives, including Garlinghouse, for allegedly violating investor protection laws. In a video posted on X today, Garlinghouse said now, more than 4 years later, he is able to finally announce that the case is over. Okay, let's talk about some of the other top crypto stories. 5 U.S. lawmakers are raising concerns over President Trump's involvement in crypto. The concerns were brought up in this letter sent on Monday to White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles from Democratic Senators Elizabeth Warren, Richard Blumenthal, Jeffrey Merkley, and Chris Van Hollen, as well as Representative Jamie Raskin. The lawmakers pointed to the president's change of stance on crypto from calling it a scam to becoming, quote, a crypto salesman. It also points out potential conflicts of interest. The lawmakers pointed to the president's meme coin, which they said earned his family and business partners close to $100 million in trading fees alone in less than 14 days on the market, as well as World Liberty Financial, Trump's crypto project, which describes itself as a type of digital asset banking platform. The letter says that foreign entities that seek to sway the president's foreign policy decisions can invest in both his crypto and social media companies. The letter also warns that the president and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick can discourage financial regulation of cryptocurrencies, even as unregulated crypto markets present warning signs of a bubble that could lead to another financial crash. The lawmakers demanded immediate action to address these and other ethical concerns, warning that, quote, these immense financial conflicts of interest have real-world stakes for the American public. A White House spokesperson told us, quote, President Trump's assets are in a trust managed by his children. There are no conflicts of interest. We also reached out to the Commerce Department but didn't hear back right away. Next, North Dakota is taking steps to tighten crypto ATM regulation. In a 45-1 vote, the state Senate passed a bill yesterday to put additional requirements on kiosk operators. These include obtaining a money transmitter license to operate in the state and displaying warning labels to prevent fraud. It would also cap individual transactions to $2,000 per day. Back in September, the Federal Trade Commission reported a 10x increase of reported losses related to Bitcoin ATM scams from 2020 to 2023. For more on crypto kiosks and how they've been misused in the U.S., you can check out this CNBC Crypto World report. Last, Microsoft is warning of malware targeting some of the most popular crypto wallets, including Coinbase and MetaMask. In this blog post out this week, Microsoft says that the malware, first uncovered by Microsoft researchers in November, could steal information belonging to users of specific crypto wallets, targeting the wallet extensions for the Google Chrome browser. The post says that the malware demonstrates sophisticated techniques to evade detection and exfiltrate sensitive data. Microsoft said that it has not been able to identify what entity is behind the threat, but that the malware does not currently exhibit widespread distribution. All right, for our main story, the Digital Asset Summit is underway in New York City, and that's where Crypto World's Mackenzie Sigalos spoke with Binance CEO Richard Teng. He discussed how he feels about the Trump White House and addressed the Wall Street Journal article that alleged that the Trump family held deal talks with Binance following the crypto exchange's guilty plea.
So Richard, we're sitting in front of an audience of major financial institutions in US-based funds, and I think that we kind of have to start with this flurry of news reports from the last few days. I know that I'm interested in what Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal have to say about what's going on between the Trump White House and Binance. I'm going to take you down the list, and let's see what you have to say. So Bloomberg is reporting that World Liberty Financial, which is that crypto bank that the Trump family supports, has been in talks with Binance.
First of all, good morning, New York. Very nice to see all of you here. Thanks, Digital Asset Summit, for having me. But first on that, speculation. I believe both World Liberty Financial as well as CZ himself have tweeted and denying the reports, right? So other than that, there's really nothing else to add. I take charge of Binance.com. For anything relating to Binance.us, you have to approach our colleagues that's based here. Yeah.
I have to also ask you about the Wall Street Journal report that, and I understand that Binance US is different than Binance.com.
It's different, yeah.
But the Trump White House and Trump in particular was looking at getting a stake in Binance.us. Any comment on that?
No, so again, as I mentioned, .us and .com are quite different animals, right? So they have different set of shareholders, they have different board of directors and different CEO running the show. So I think .us is best to approach the .us colleagues there to discuss the issue.
So we've had this significant changing of the guard, both with respect to overall policy in the U.S., but the country's approach to crypto in particular. And so, I mean, you are a regulator by training, so I think maybe we start there. You have clearly laid out the fact that these are two separate entities, they're not working together, but U.S. policy ripples into your international business. So how are you feeling about the Trump White House so far?
So it's fantastic, right? So I mean, for those that are based in the US itself, you must be really optimistic in the crypto industry. We went from 4 years of Operation Choke Point 2.0 to now, you have a very pro-president, pro-crypto, pro-AI president, right? So I think it's extremely different environment that we're operating into. And I mean, Binance.com, we don't operate in the US, but we have benefited from all these pro-crypto policies. I think if you look at what happened immediately after President Trump has been appointed, we moved from regulation via enforcement, which is not tenable. I'm an ex-regulator. I spent 28 years in regulations. And I tell you, that's the worst form of regulation, right? Because as regulators, we have the ability to write rules, we have the ability to give guidance, and you hold a pen. Why do you want to go to courts to enforce the guidance that we can give to the industry, right? So that should be the last port of call. So under this administration, it's extremely positive. I think the US is coming out with very thoughtful rules and regulations, taking time to formulate those. So we are holding a watching brief of what's coming out from the US. But that general optimism has filtered into the global markets, right? So today, Binance, we have about 265 million users globally, making us the largest platform. We have the deepest liquidity, most liquid order books on that front. So just as some data, right? So we started last year, 2024, with 170 million users on the platform. We ended the year with 240 plus million users. So we onboarded 70 million plus new users throughout the course of last year. It means that more than 30% of the users now on Binance are new users that just came on board. And that's part of the mainstreaming that we are seeing, right? So started the year with ETF approval in the US, and then subsequently in different parts of the world, from Brazil to Australia to Hong Kong. And that gave a new look into this space, right? So the institutions are now starting to take this space very seriously. So crypto, unlike any other asset class, has been very unique. It has always been embraced by retail, and the rest doesn't quite embrace it. Whereas any other asset class always starts from institutions to corporates to high net worth, and then finally the retailers gets it. So last year was a landmark year in the form that institutions are finally coming on board, and the regulators are starting to look at this space seriously, starting to devote resources and give clarity, right? So going forward, we are bullish with all the key drivers because more and more regulators will be compelled to spend resources to come out with clear rules to compete with US, which is going to be extremely pro-crypto. And with President Trump coming out with both, whether you call it strategic crypto reserve or asset stockpile, it will force governments around the world in terms of their own sovereign wealth funds, their own asset allocation, to look at this space quite seriously, to do allocation. And the sovereign wealth funds are already starting allocation, right? So you have corporate treasuries, etc. So there's going to be a huge momentum going forward.
Well, on that last point, I mean, there are reports that a lot of the Gulf states have been looking into this, that there were even conversations within the Chinese government to launch an SBR type of fund. Are you advising governments on those plans?
Globally, I think post-President Trump election, we have received a lot of approaches from different governments around the world. By virtue of us being the largest, we are now regulated in 21 different jurisdictions, making us the most regulated entity globally, right? From different parts of Asia Pacific, such as Japan, Australia, Thailand, Indonesia, so on, to different parts of Middle East, to Latin America, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, to other very fast developing countries. So many countries, I mean, even today, only about 1/3 of global regulators are regulating this space. 2/3 are still not. For those 1/3, they regulate crypto in different manners. Some deem it as securities, some deem it as commodities. Singapore is a digital payment token. And then in Middle East, some parts of the world, they created calibrated bespoke framework to regulate them as virtual assets, right? So again, when countries approach us, we want them to come up with a framework that support the innovative aspects of crypto, but managing the risk aspect. And we have quite a lot of experience on that front, having been licensed and regulated in so many different jurisdictions by now. So we are working with quite a number of jurisdictions. I'm recently in different parts of Asia Pacific, in Hong Kong, in Japan. Again, every time there are new rules coming out from those places, we are sought after to give inputs into the changes they are making to make those regimes even more competitive.
Recently, when we had that SBR announcement, the White House's first ever AI and crypto czar, David Sachs, said that there would be an open process to choose a custodian. I know that Coinbase might be one of the names in the mix. Do you think that Binance might also throw its hat in the ring to custody cryptocurrency for the US?
Well, so last year, I mean, in terms of number of institutional clients, I think we see a huge surge in terms of onboarding, right? So in terms of particular space, we do serve the institutions slightly differently. So we have products such as what we call Binance Wealth. We have tripartite arrangement, meaning a lot of traditional institutions, they still want their assets to be custodized with banks, but they want to trade through us, right? By virtue that you get best execution, you get best bid-ask spread by trading through us. So with things like tripartite arrangement between us, the banks, and the trading party, we have Binance Wealth, where you have assets that's under discretionary management of fund managers, and their clients wants to get into crypto, we offer them those products. So we have different options available for institutions to come through and trade through us. But it really depends on what they need. So we will tailor products accordingly based on the institutional needs.
But what about custodying cryptocurrency for the US government?
Oh, in the US, we can't speak. We are not in the US at this point in time, so we don't operate here, so we can't quite speak on that front.
Okay, that's all for Crypto World today. We'll be back again tomorrow, and we'll see you then.